We are in the UN decade of ecosystem restoration. With the climate, water, and biodiversity crisis looming large, a comprehensive, interdisciplinary approach at a large scale is the need of the hour. In India, one organization leading the way is the RAAH Foundation. In this episode, I interviewed Dr. Sarika Kulkarni, the founder of the RAAH Foundation. She elaborates upon the various initiatives RAAH Foundation has undertaken. This ranges from climate-friendly farming and alternative sustainable livelihoods to water conservation and ecological restoration. Tune in to this very informative episode and don't forget to subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to. For those who decide to support the podcast through a paid subscription on YouTube or Substack, 30% of the revenue from this episode will be donated to the RAAH Foundation. So, welcome, Dr. Sarika. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Anish. Such a pleasure talking to you. And thank you for inviting us.
So, my first question is, what was the idea behind the RAAH Foundation?
Yeah, sure. So, this is my third career. I started my career as a faculty with a leading business school in Mumbai. But I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Finally, I decided to fulfill my long desire in 2001 when I was on my maternity leave and my son was born. So I became an entrepreneur at that time. Phenomenal journey as an entrepreneur. Sometime during later part of my entrepreneurship journey around 2007-8, I woke up in the morning and I realized that I'm a very powerful person because I'm a job creator. And then immediately the next moment, a thought came to my mind that if I was job creator, I should really create jobs for the people who need it. So far, I've been creating jobs for people who are very privileged, who have had fortune to do a college degree, fortune to get trained, and I should actually create job for some unfortunate people who don't have those privileges. And I tweaked my training program for 3 months to 6 months, took a small cohort of 10 youth, young boys and girls, trained them in my business, and told them very clearly that I will only recruit them if they prove themselves. And as it so happens that after 6 months, I could recruit everybody because everybody had proved themselves. And it was a very touching moment for me because, it was kind of realization that all people need is an opportunity. All people need is a direction. All people need is a RAAH. And then I gave them a job in my business. I took another cohort of 30 youth, again, same, trained them, gave them job. And the entire experience was very humbling for me because, in fact, for all of us, because, I mean, the transformation that we saw in their lives because of a small thing that we had done was enormous. And, how they would come on day one and how they would be after a year because now they have a bankable job, they have bank accounts, they get salaries every month, they become role models in their community, in their families. They are repairing their houses, they are moving into better houses, they are taking their parents to good health treatment. So a lot of interesting things were happening in their life, and somewhere we felt responsible and somewhere we felt very humbled because of able to create these opportunities. And then I was so interested in just doing this that I decided that if this is what excites me more than really earning money or running a business, I should just do more of this. And nature heard me. I got bought out by a very large American company in 2010. And the first thing I did was start RAAH Foundation. And I called it RAAH Foundation because that's exactly what I had done in my business also. Just showed them the RAAH. They worked hard and they found their own manzil. So that's the thought behind RAAH Foundation.
So, RAAH Foundation is working towards developing climate smart farming. Why are these interventions required, and what are the primary challenges faced by tribal indigenous farmers? Before we go, what exactly is climate smart farming?
Yeah, absolutely. So RAAH Foundation works at the nexus of planet and people. So when I say planet and people, I mean in planet, how do we rejuvenate our planet? So we can do it by multiple ways. One is, of course, ensure that planet has enough water for everybody. So we have a large program on water security. Ensure that, all the barren land is covered by thick trees. So that is another program. And climate smart agriculture is a part of our people program, It's actually climate smart agriculture is again at the nexus of planet and people. Because when I say climate smart agriculture, what do I really mean? Because climate change is big, it is real, and it is also worst affected communities are the small and marginal farmers, and they are also the innocent victims of climate change. They have not caused it, but they are facing the brunt of climate change. And what we saw was that every year they would lose their harvest by 30 to 40%. Harvest was lost because they were not able to articulate what was happening in their life. When they were young, when these farmers who are now old enough to be farmers, when they were young, every year around 13th, 14th of June, there'll be rains and there'll be slow start, and the monsoon was predictable. But now everything is unpredictable. There were no heavy rains, there were no intense rains in those days, or there was no wind, or there were no pre-monsoon showers were also not that harmful. But now everything has become very, very harmful. As a result, the farmers are not able to predict all these changes that are taking place. As a result, they are not prepared. So the crop losses have been enormous. So that's why we designed this program called Climate Smart Agriculture, where we are actually preparing where we are educating the farmers to really take crops which can withstand heavy rains, which can withstand the vagaries of climate change, which can withstand extremely heavy winds, which sometimes accompany the rains, and ensure that there are minimum losses that the farmers face. So that is the whole idea behind that. And what do we do in that is really, so when the farmers typically grow paddy or rice or and millets and keep everything for self consumption during the monsoon season, we have given them a different variety of rice. It is called the system of rice intensification or system of millet intensification. So here what happens, the way you plant your paddy or the way you plant your millets is very different than the traditional methodology. Here they are intense. When you say intense, the crops are much more dense. As a result, they are much more stronger. As a result, they are less vulnerable to climate change related problems and challenges that happen. So that is one. Then the second is, of course, water. At the end of the day, whatever work we do on water, it is still limited. So we are encouraging farmers to actually, grow crops which need less water. For example, turmeric. For example, dragon fruit. Which are, dragon fruit is from cacti family, and there are multiple other crops which do not guzzle water. We encourage irrigation systems so that the water need falls down. We encourage solar based irrigation systems so that electricity is also not required. Then we are encouraging multiple other practices which is making the farmers much more resilient to climate change. And that is why we call it climate smart agriculture, and that is something which is required because these are all very marginal small farmers. I mean, and their entire family, their livelihood is only agriculture. That is the only income they get. And imagine if every year you are losing about 30 to 40% of the crops to climate change. I mean, what will they earn and what will they eat and how will they survive? So, it's a question not only of their survival, I think also of our food security. We ultimately cannot eat plastic. We have to eat vegetables. We have to eat fruits. And who grows them? Farmers grow them. And if farmers are going to suffer every year because of climate change, I mean, I think it's a serious problem for all of us. So this was a very important program, and this continues to be very, very critical program for us. And every year, what we are doing in climate smart agriculture is we go wider and we go deeper. When I say we go wider, as in we enroll new farmers, teach them methods, provide them with input support. And when I say we go deeper, as in for past farmers, we connect them to the marketplace. We ensure that they get better value for their produce. We ensure that they come together as a coalition and create that economies of scale. So that is the program we do.
So, what impact has this project had until date?
Oh, enormous impact. The so what the families used to do, you can only talk about impact when you actually do this, what was happening before and what is happening now. So I'll just give you the before scenario, right? So before our intervention, what these people used to do is that they would grow rice and ragi, which is like millet, finger millet, and keep everything for self consumption. And after that, there was no water, or they didn't know agriculture. This was actually came as a shock to us. The entire indigenous wisdom on agriculture has been lost because for centuries there was no water available for second crop or third crop. The second crop, which is typically the rabi crop, and the third crop, which is the summer crop, there was no water left. As a result, families started migrating to move to urban locations to work as a casual labor. And so that was a big problem. And the fathers were doing that, the sons would start doing that, their children would do that. So there was like generation after generation, because there was no water, there was no education, there was no information on climate, on agriculture, there was no knowledge on climate, on agriculture. Families would migrate. And that is what we saw when we started working. But because of our intervention on water, water became available. Because of our intervention on, they started growing year-round crops and started getting a decent income from agriculture. They started living a life of dignity. They stopped migrating completely. So now we have so many families, over 2,000 families who work as a casual labor. And they continue to live in their own villages happily. All the entire family is living together. And the clearly, not only this is a big impact, but we can say there are other big impacts because of this. One, of course, the children are better taken care of. Children are growing in a very nurturing atmosphere, in a loving atmosphere, taken care of by their parents. Both mother and father are together. And then other big impact is because the children are well taken care of. Clearly they are well fed also. So the incidence, the chances of producing nurturing a malnourished children is reduced drastically, because mothers are there to take care of the children. And I think a longer term impact of this is that because the families are living together, they are also practicing their tribal indigenous culture more frequently. And ultimately, at the end of the day, our tribal indigenous culture is nothing but a cultural heritage of India. So we are actually this program. I mean, I won't be wrong if I say that a very long term impact is preservation of cultural heritage of the country. Because when you stop migration destroys everything. It just destroys the fabric of the community, destroys the fabric of the family, and obviously has a big danger that we'll lose our cultural heritage, like we have lost indigenous agricultural practices.
So, RAAH Foundation is also working towards improving water security. So, how exactly are you guys improving water security, and what have been some challenges you guys face in this regard?
Absolutely. So, water is, as we all agree, that it's the elixir of life. And without water, nothing is possible. So, what we do is that we work on three main things on water security. The first main theme of water security that we work on is surface water improvement and groundwater table improvement. When I say surface water improvement, what we try and do is that catch every drop where it falls and when it falls. So we create this rainwater harvesting sources, like check dams, open wells, or rooftop rainwater harvesting, ponds, springs, deepen the springs, widen the streams, improve the water capacity of ponds, improve the water capacity, rainwater harvesting capacity of check dams. So we work on surface water improvement. We also work on improving the groundwater table, which is what we do through rejuvenation tanks, through rejuvenation wells, and all of those. So that's the one pillar of our water security program. The second pillar is that we work on both supply side and demand side. And where in the supply side, we map all needs rather. So we create supply sources for human drinking. We create supply sources for cattle drinking. We create water supply sources for sanitation and hygiene, and most importantly for agriculture. And then we realize that while it is important to work on improving or augmenting the water availability in the village, it is equally important that water is judiciously used. So then on the demand side also we work, and on the demand side we create a water management committee which is gender neutral at the village level, which then ensures that water is properly used. Not only that, this committee is actually the guardian of the village water structures. So they take care of the water structures. So even after we exit, this committee becomes the in charge of all the water structures. And whenever some repair is required, or whenever some work is required, the committee actually ensures that work gets done. And once the community becomes water secure, they continue to remain water secure. And of course, the third thing that we are doing is improve the quality of water. So we work on improving the availability of water, improving the access to water, and importantly, improving the quality of water. So we have also installed gravity-based, water purification systems in many villages. So the community gets access to very pure drinking water. So that's the work on water security. And of course, it has also had the enormous impact, like I mentioned previously, that year-round agriculture has become possible. Women don't have to walk. Otherwise, women were walking to, fetch water from far away places. Now they don't have to walk, because water is available in their own villages. And according to one of our research itself, about 1,000 hours per annum women were saving now that water was available in their own villages. And this, of course, means that women are keeping healthier because, I mean, ultimately it's, wear and tear to their bodies, right? If you're walking with pots on your head, it is causing enormous wear and tear to the human body. So their health has improved. They're spending more time with their children. They are also using this saved time to earn an economic opportunity, earn an income. So multiple impacts we can actually talk about when we are talking about the water security program. We have implemented a water security program across more than 110 villages. We have created more than 1,000 million liters of rainwater harvesting capacity. We have also got United Nations recognition for our work on water. So, so it's very interesting.
So you guys are also working in the Western Ghats. Why is it so important to conserve these mountain ecosystems? And can you just also elaborate about the work you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work in northern Western Ghats. Now, northern Western Ghats and entire Western Ghats is very, very important for India because of multiple reasons. One is, of course, it regulates the climatic conditions for India because, and it is one of the biodiversity hotspots in the world. It is the top 10 biodiversity hotspots in the world. We have already lost about 30% of the forest cover. And if we don't act now, if we don't do anything now, there is a danger that we may lose another 50% by 2050. And we have already several critical flora, fauna, insects, animals are endangered who actually live in this area. So we have to quickly, immediately pull up our socks and protect this area, convert whatever barren land is there into thick forest so that we can preserve the flora, fauna, biodiversity gets preserved because these are very important for the country to preserve the whole, ecosystems. And as I mentioned, that this is also part of the forest corridor. The entire Western Ghat is part of the forest corridor. So we are actually, and what had happened is over the years, because of human anthropogenic activity and because of deforestation, the forest corridors have got shrunk to a very small part. So animal movement has also got restricted to that very small part. As a result, what is happening is there's a lot of interbreeding which is happening in animals. And the next generation of animals also that are being born are much weaker than their parents because of this interbreeding. What we are essentially trying to do is actually, expand this forest corridor through plantation, through preservation of grasses, by educating the communities about human animal conflict, and by educating the communities about preserving the biodiversity. So that is the work we are doing. Our program is called Regreen Nation. And last year, we actually converted about 600 acres of barren land into thick forest. And this year we are doing another 700 acres of land. We work closely with the government, and our ambition is to actually create the entire forest corridor, convert the entire forest corridor into forest, which are now become barren. So, make it a forest, thick forest, conserve biodiversity, save the endangered flora, fauna from going extinct, improve the microclimatic conditions, improve the water catchment area for the critical rivers. 10 large rivers originate in Western Ghats, including Godavari, which is the second longest river, and Krishna. So improve the catchment in these rivers, improve the capacity of the rivers to hold more water. So that is the whole idea. And, it's a very, very ambitious program. And we really hope that a lot of people join us in this program. And because everybody needs, Western Ghats are important.
So, what about the work you guys are doing in terms of skill training and women's livelihood programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we work at the nexus of planet and people. So, the programs on water and climate are part of our planet rejuvenation program. And in people, we have three programs, three verticals. One is, of course, agriculture, which I already mentioned about. And then there are two other very, very important verticals, which is the women livelihood program and the skill training for youth program. So, in women livelihood, what we do is that we work with the two types of people, two types of women. One is, of course, individual women, where we try and facilitate a local business, local business opportunity for the woman, like starting a small shop in the village, or starting a blacksmith business, starting a food stall, starting a tailoring, a tailoring store, shop. So these kind of businesses where a woman can individually work and earn a decent income by catering to the local village. And there are group businesses. In group businesses, what we have done is we have these women come together during the time whenever they have time, and they make things like quilts, patchwork quilts. They make patchwork bags, patchwork runners, patchwork mats, or they also upcycle the fabric waste which otherwise would have gone to landfills into mats and other things. They do grass weaving is another cohort that we have. So women actually make all these products. And we, of course, are also rejuvenating Warli art, which is the local tribal art form. So we also have a Warli artist cohort. And then we also have a social business called RAAH Creative Design, which provides market linkages to these products, because it's not, while it is important to teach them to make and upskill, women to make all these products, ultimately the objective should be income generation, right? And how will they cannot come to Mumbai and sell. So somebody else has to sell it on their behalf. So that's what RAAH Creative Design team does. So there's a separate team because there are different skill sets required to run an art business. It's run like an art business. So, we have designers, we have merchandisers, and we have a different office. And that business is also doing extremely well now. So that's our program on women livelihood. Then the program on skill training works with youth, unemployed, underprivileged youth in the age group of 18 to 25 years, and trains them for a job in three fields. One is service sector. So it's a 35-day program where we teach them, build their confidence, teach them speaking skills, teach them Office, Microsoft Office, teach them tally, accounts, you know, multiple things, communication skills, basically soft skills plus some technical skills, and place them. It's a job oriented skill training program, and place them in companies for in retail sector or in back offices and things like that. So that's a skill one program that we have. The second program is where we train them to find a job in a manufacturing sector. So that's like high-end welding course, machinist course, and things like that. So that's the second track that we have. The third track is training them to find a job in media, either social media or print media or different types of digital journalism course. So these are the three things that we are training the youth on. And we have about 16 centers spread across Maharashtra and one in Gujarat in Vadodara, where we are engaging youth. So that's the skill training program.
How can individuals contribute to RAAH Foundation?
Yeah, multiple ways, multiple ways. We are constantly looking for good volunteers. So you can volunteer with us, you can support us, help us with fundraise. So you can support us in multiple ways. You can connect us with people who you think will be important, interesting for us, who can help us improve our work. You can become our amplifiers. You can augment our work by just becoming amplifiers. Share our work in your groups whenever we are posting anything on LinkedIn or we are posting anything on Instagram. Reshare content and amplify our voices. We need all the three types of people. We need supporters, we need connectors, and we need amplifiers. So we can be any one of them.
And what have been some of the most prominent challenges you have faced at RAAH Foundation?
Oh, multiple challenges. Every day is a new challenge. So, I mean, even conceptualizing the programs was a challenge. Like in case of you ask program on like agriculture program, for example. I mean, there are multiple challenges. One, of course, water availability is limited, and then it's a mountain area. Like we are talking about Western Ghats, so flat land is limited. There's undulating land. Soil depth is low. It's a rocky soil. Farmers have no idea about agriculture. So, how do you really find opportunities for agriculture when you are faced with so many roadblocks? So, of course, these are programs. Then climate change is, of course, a very, very big challenge all of us are facing. I mean, I mean, it rained for 2 days and then now there are no rains. What do you do? So, because of it rained for 2 days, we had to stop our work on water, and now there's no rains at all. So, should we start our work, restart our work? What should we do? We have no answers, because it may so happen that we start and it starts raining again. So the uncertainty that is caused by climate change is a huge challenge, and we have not yet found an answer to that. Honestly, I don't think anybody has an answer to that. So, so there are multiple challenges. Of course, going to a new location, talking to communities, convincing them is a challenge. So, there are different challenges in different programs.
So that was the final question I had for you today. Thank you so much for taking time out for this.
So much. Thank you so much, Anish. All the best for your podcast.
If you made it till the end of this podcast, feel free to leave your thoughts on the topic and do not forget to share and subscribe. Before we end the podcast, I would like to share another list of conservation books which I highly recommend. This time it is on the topic of rewilding and ecological restoration. The first is a seminal book called Rewilding: The Radical New Science of Ecological Recovery by Glenn Blight and Paul Chipson, which covers the restoration of ecological processes and ecosystem functioning by the reintroduction of species, especially megaherbivores. A less technical and science heavy book is Rewilding Africa: The Restoration of Wilderness on a War Ravaged Continent, which explores conservation across various heavily militarized landscapes. And the final book is Wilder: How Rewilding is Transforming Conservation and Changing the World. This covers the rewilding of various charismatic species ranging from pumas in the US to the Arabian oryx in the Middle East and giant tortoise. And with that, I would like to end this episode of the Think Wildlife podcast. See you next Monday.